Hey, Barton, I wanted to ask you, we've got that client, they got sued by their ex-employee, wrongful termination, and I think a lot of it went back to they just didn't have the right policies, procedures in place. They weren't documenting things correctly. But anyway, they just called and they said, look, we want to go back and if we can, correct the issues that led to that. They want to train some of their managers and basically just do things the right way. And I started going down that path of talking with them about documentation, but I'm not the employment expert, you are. So I wanted to find out and just some talking points for me, why do they need to do this? Like what's the reasoning behind it? Because that was their biggest thing. They're like, why do we have to do this? So anyway, what are your thoughts on the why and maybe some best practices as to what they should be doing?
Sure. I mean, documenting on paper, discussing with the employee is critical. If the employee is having any performance issues or doing anything wrong, the boss needs to be discussing those with the employee, writing down the issues, and keeping a paper trail. In this case, the client is likely going to face a lawsuit from the former employee. And so they're going to have to prove why they terminated this employee. If that's in writing, then they can hold up a piece of paper in court and they can say, look, here's exactly why we terminated the employee. Here's what we discussed with them. 3 reasons that they have performance issues. Yeah. And then they can defend themselves and avoid a costly lawsuit.
Gotcha. So like when they're actually sitting down with their employees, the ones that may have performance issues, does the employee have to acknowledge and sign that document where they're documenting some of the performance issues? Or what if the employee's like, I'm not signing that thing,
Ideally, you do want the employee to sign something.
Okay.
If you put a performance review, a performance improvement plan, a counseling letter, or something to the employee, ideally you want them to sign and acknowledge it.
Gotcha.
If they won't, another way to create a record is to put it in email it to the employee. Then you got a date and a time stamp.
Okay.
And so with this client situation, they would have been able to refer back to either a signed document from the employee or that email where they forwarded the PIP, the counseling letter, the performance review. They could pull up that email, hold it up in court and say, look, we told this employee A, B, and C.
Gotcha. Okay, so that helps to create that written objective record. And any other pros and cons that you can think of with regards to doing this documentation of performance?
I mean, employee accountability and improvement is a huge reason. So not just avoiding legal liability and protecting your business, but fostering good human resources practices. Periodic performance reviews, periodic counseling if somebody does something wrong, that really helps to keep open channels of communications between the boss and the employee, and it improves accountability and improvement.
Gotcha. So it's not just about necessarily protecting themselves from a lawsuit. There's a silver lining, I guess, to doing some of this stuff.
Absolutely.
Anything else that you can think of, like why they should be doing this?
I mean, on the minimizing liability, it really helps to potentially have an earlier settlement or earlier dismissal of a case. If a former employee brings a claim, the documentation is always going to help out the employer to resolve the case quicker.
Gotcha. Okay. It might be helpful to have you on this call whenever I talk with the client, because this is, they've never done this before, so this is new to them, and they're going, why? That's been their biggest question is why do we need to be doing this? So anyway, this is great. I appreciate your help.
Thanks.